Are you interested in simple steps to heal the root cause of your health issues? Whether it's anxiety, depression, insomnia, weight gain, hormonal issues, digestive issues, or any difficult to treat condition? Welcome to Heal Your Body, Cure Your Mind, where you'll get most of the answers for your health concerns and benefit from the latest techniques in naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, and psychotherapy to heal your mind and body together. As a naturopathic doctor, psychotherapist, and best-selling author, I've also created a free ebook and online course for you at drameet.com. That's drameet.com, where you'll get tons of tips to heal your mind, your body, your emotions, your gut, your liver, inflammation, and other things that go wrong in your body. Without further ado, with lots of love to your beautiful heart, here's your podcast for this week.
Hello, Avaya family. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of Avaya University. Avaya is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Dr. Ameet Agarwal, is back with us today to talk about finding love after abandonment. Voted one of the top 43 therapists to follow, Dr. Ameet is one of the only therapists who combines naturopathic and functional medicine, Gestalt psychotherapy, family constellations therapy, EMDR, and homeopathy to help people with trauma, anxiety, depression, and chronic disease. His best-selling book, online sessions, and online courses have helped thousands of people overcome difficult emotional and physical health issues because they focus on healing your mind and body together instead of separately. Dr. Ameet also helps poor communities and children living with disabilities in Kenya through sales of his online course and books. So welcome back to Avaya.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be back.
Always great to have you. And I'm so excited that we get to talk about another great topic today. Let's dive into that. So what to you is what is abandonment for a child, and how does it affect emotions in adulthood?
So abandonment for me is a huge topic, Andy, because I felt abandoned when I was dropped off in boarding school, and every time I was separated from my mom, and it triggered a lot of pain and confusion about my safety, confusion about belonging, confusion about integration. So abandonment can be anything from, your parents leaving you, or I also experience with my clients, abandonment is when the family structure also changes. Yeah. So maybe dad will leave or mom will leave, or there's a separation temporary. But just that change in what you're familiar with can be experienced as abandonment because your sense of belonging and your identity shifts a little bit. There's subtle abandonments where maybe mom was sick and she went to the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, we see this in early childhood trauma. There's or mom looks away for a while, and when you're really reaching out to her, so that sense of ignorance. And because I practice family constellation therapy as well, we see a lot of abandonment issues are not being seen when either of the parent is busy or preoccupied with their grief or longing for one of their family members who passed away early, for example. Yeah. So if my mom's mom passed away at a very early age when my mom was young, my mom might have a longing for her mother. And so now I come along into her life, and yes, I'm her child and she's showing me love, but part of her soul is connected to that longing. So there is a sense of abandonment or not lack of connection with mom, and it'll feel like neglect or an inability to connect. And I will sense that, not knowing what it is. Yeah. And that creates a real heaviness in a child. Yeah. A pain, a difficulty to connect. And also what happens is when we're abandoned or refuse love, we actually start refusing love ourselves because it's too much to be rejected. So it's easier just to cope with yourself. So we get these blocks to receiving life force and receiving energy. And that can also, how do I call it? Stifle your ability to thrive.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and sharing a little bit about your personal story as well in your childhood. So let's tie this into the conversation of overcoming abandonment into also self-worth. So how could you help people, or actually let's start with first, why do you think self-worth tends to go down after someone has experienced abandonment? And then we'll get to the next one.
So our identity comes from validation, often when we're young, yeah? The way we are acknowledged or received, and the way we exchange information with the adult, with our caretakers, develops our sense of groundedness, belonging, identity, and self-worth. Yeah, because it's like, gosh, I smile and I get affirmations, and it's like I get encouragement that the environment or the parents, the external environment loves me. So I get more and more comfortable and confident in myself. After abandonment, there's no feedback loop happening in my environment. Yeah. One, I'm alone, so there's no affirmations going on, right? So there's nothing nourishing my sense of connection with the outside world, because our connection with the outside world at a very young age is through our eyes and through love and through touch and through contact. When all that goes missing, it's painful. There's pain. And usually what they say at a young age, when things go wrong in the external environment, children blame themselves. They think it's their fault. They're doing something. Yeah. So that self-blame starts to creep in. Yeah, I'm responsible for this. And that immediately blocks this flourishing that's naturally meant to happen and this connection to the outside world. That flourishing, I believe, is your self-worth. It's full of good energy and that confidence. And so that emptiness, if we look at self-worth as an energy, it could be just an empty energy. And so you think that you might be able to talk yourself out of low self-worth, but sometimes you need energetic shifts. You need to be held in the right way with the right therapy, or you need to go to that place of pain and really feel the pain and the abandonment and your vulnerability once again, and then get new feedback from a therapist or from the environment in order to reassimilate your energetic field, right? And so I would definitely experiment with more experiential therapies, somatic experiencing, gestalt, family constellations, so you can really feel the energetic shift in you rather than trying to think yourself out of low self-worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you focus on anything to do with really like tapping into the body and the breath and somatics. And so here's a question, like this is coming to me in the moment. I have definitely been someone who has been affected by the abandonment wound. And it's one of the biggest fears that comes up for me, and, you know, from my childhood and into my adulthood. And sometimes I'll get into these spaces of just really being afraid. And I'm sure a lot of Avaya students watching or listening could relate to that experience of just really like kind of spiraling down into this fear of abandonment. So when someone is in that state, like how could you help people overcome that fear?
Okay. So good question. I practice homeopathy as well, and some great remedies. Ignatia is one of them when you're fear and panicking after a betrayal or abandonment. I cover other remedies in the online course, homeopathic remedies specifically. The other thing to notice about abandonment, whether you're being abandoned as a young child by your parents, or in a relationship as an adult, or by people around you as friends, abandonment opens up old wounds usually. Yeah, it exposes what's not healed within us. Mm-hmm. And so when somebody comes to me with abandonment issues, I will look at what's been happening in their childhood and in their ancestral line, for example. Yeah. So, for example, if mom was abused by dad, for example, and she has this low self-worth going on, and me as a child, I am loyal to my mom and her sadness, and I really connect with her inner sadness. And I don't develop any sorts of resources for happiness, for independence, all those things. I have a codependent relationship with mom in her misery and her sadness and almost rejecting dad. Later on, when I grow up and I go into a relationship, and maybe I go into a codependent relationship based on my habits from childhood. I'm always taking care of my partner, doing things for them, ignoring my own needs. Suddenly, they abandon me. The relationship ends. I am faced with a certain emptiness. I have no sense of self-worth, because that person has gone away. So I'm not doing anything for anyone that would give me that feedback that I'm valuable or belong somewhere. Yeah. So that will bring up a lot of pain and fear. That's one example of a wound during childhood or an ancestral wound in a family entanglement that can be exposed after an abandonment. Yeah. Others are like, for example, if my parents had a love affair and they were not blessed by their parents, their marriage was not blessed. This is constellation work now. And I actually have experienced this personally. Yeah. Because in my parents had eloped, like they had a love affair. And it was against tradition. And bizarrely, I didn't realize how powerful this is, but because maybe my mom wasn't fully blessed by her dad about the marriage, yeah, there's a sense of me that I don't really belong or I don't dare to exist in a way. Yeah, that's energetics. And so when I'm abandoned by a partner, I'll feel this real fear of being alone because, like, gosh, I have no support, no sense of existence, no permission to exist. Or if my mom left me a lot during boarding school or school, and then my girlfriend leaves me, again, I'm exposed to all those wounds of the bullies and the mean teachers. Yeah. So I look at specific wounds a person may have, different family entanglements that open up when there's a crisis in their life. And usually the pain we experience is not so much the crisis in the life, but those old wounds coming up again. So I combine EMDR, Gestalt psychotherapy, family constellation therapy, and homeopathy, yeah, to just ease the nervous system, release trauma, and get them reintegrated into their environment, reconnect with a sense of safety and resources.
Yeah, one thing I always love about talking with you, Ameet, is you always bring in these things that kind of blow my mind, you know, as far as ancestral stuff and how, you know, your experience of being born into a family where your grandfather didn't bless the marriage or whatever, right? How that impacted you. And it always, like, I think makes so many of us like look at all the different dynamics in our families in new ways and how that can influence our emotions and overall health. So I appreciate that. That was awesome.
Pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, it feels a bit exposing, but hey, I'm ready to teach it, so it's okay.
There you go. So, okay, let's talk a little bit more about food and eating, since you're also a naturopath. So what would you say is the connection between low self-worth and eating habits for some people?
What comes to mind first is that our connection with mother often comes through food. I've seen that in a lot of people because mom fed us. So our comfort is through, that eating is like we're associating with mom. Yeah, it's like if mom goes or mom's disappearing or mom's not around, it's like, I need that love, I need that comfort. And we automatically go to eating, especially those sweets or pastries, whatever we were fed as children. And so when we are going through low self-worth after an abandonment, we are reaching for comfort very fast. And a lot of people will binge eat. Some people will not be hungry at all after an abandonment, and a lot of trauma and pain, they lose their hunger. And there's specific homeopathic remedies for that as well. But a lot of people in their depression or their anxiety will eat for comfort. And that doesn't help our brain chemicals. Usually when they're eating the wrong foods, that creates inflammation in the body. And inflammation messes up your cortisol levels, which then messes up your brain chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, melatonin. Yeah. I cover all this in the free online course we'll talk about at the end. If you want to understand how your liver, your gut, and adrenals and brain chemicals work. But the important thing to remember is that when your brain chemicals go off, you experience more anxiety, depression, and negative thoughts, which are directly connected to your sense of self-worth, right? Suddenly I'm feeling low, I'm feeling horrible, and then I've eaten all this terrible stuff, then I feel worse about myself. Maybe I'm putting on weight, maybe I'm breaking out into acne, or I just look puffy because of all the inflammation and toxicity, right? And so it's just a downward spiral, yeah? And all this inflammation then exhausts your adrenal glands as well. So we got life stress, so a relationship breakup, the abandonment, family issues from childhood, all this is stored in the nervous system, yeah? And when you go through a crisis, these wounds get opened up, your fight or flight, your stress response gets triggered. So you drive your adrenal glands into exhaustion, one, through that emotional memory and emotional trauma, as well as through the inflammation that comes from eating the wrong foods. When your adrenal glands get wiped out, your cortisol levels get out of balance, affecting your brain chemicals and therefore contributing to these negative thoughts. So what I do is I help clients heal their emotional trauma with the Gestalt, etc., and the homeopathy. And I also make sure we correct the diet, removing like the gluten, the dairy, healing the gut with probiotics, vitamin D, and other remedies that I'll talk about. And detoxifying the liver, for sure, that's super important because the liver affects the mood immensely. Low progesterone, for example, it has been connected to a lack of GABA in the brain or reducing GABA's efficacy in the brain. And the liver is a balancer of hormones. So often liver stagnation causes progesterone deficiency. That's a sidetrack. But going back, we need to heal the gut, the liver, and support the adrenal glands. And that we do through herbs and, of course, reducing the inflammation and releasing trauma. So an integrated approach, I think, is super important to help people get out of depression, low self-esteem, low self-worth, because it could be a biochemical reason combined with, of course, emotional trauma from childhood.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for going into all of that. So you kind of already touched on this, Ameet, but I know you also work with EMDR, family constellations, and homeopathy. So is there anything else you can talk about regarding those and how you would combine those to help someone with this abandonment wound and low self-worth?
So I encourage vulnerability in my practice. Yeah, I encourage you to feel more before trying to feel better. Feel more and own your stuff. We have a lot of stigma around the feelings we get, stigma around feeling helpless or weak. And then we try and block those feelings. Yeah, we don't really go deep into our vulnerability and our soft spot. And I promise you, Andy, when we embrace those places through the right therapy, with the right therapist holding the space safely for you, then you become comfortable with those hidden parts, your shadows. And when you make friends with those parts, I promise you life gets better. You're less afraid of abandonment. You have more self-esteem. You're more comfortable with those parts because low self-esteem is really an attack against parts of you. Right. In a way. Yeah, you're not comfortable with certain parts of you. You're hiding them because of what you're labeled against them. Or you haven't had the right kind of support to embrace those parts of you. Because those weak parts, quote unquote, or those painful parts are often associated with difficult times in your life. So suddenly if I feel weak, my body will have a visceral memory of being bullied, for example, and too exposed. So I don't want to go to that weak feeling because I'm too exposed. My mind not associated with the old memory, but my body will. And so I'm blocking those vulnerable feelings 24/7, and that burns out your adrenal glands as well. So I would say encourage vulnerability, allow yourself to really go to those places where you don't want to go, feel fearful, feel anger, feel hate, feel all these things fully and explore what's the sensation and the memory behind all these feelings, rather than force yourself to be like a good person or politically correct or whatever, all that stuff that blocks our natural flow of energy. I'm not saying abuse people or act inappropriately. It's just using your own body, your energetics, your mind, really dig deep, dive deep into things you're afraid of feeling. And you'll get some answers there as well.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Feel more before you're working on feeling better. That's good. Yeah, that's good. So here's just a question as like overall question, right? If someone has had this abandonment experience and then they do want to find love again, let's say it was a romantic partnership or something. I mean, you've covered a lot of that, right? Be vulnerable, but if people have fears around, getting back into a relationship after something like that, any other thoughts there to ease their minds?
What comes up for me is don't expect the other person to heal your wound or rescue you from your pain. That's what's coming up to me intuitively, because I think, of course, we want company again. And there are rebound relationships all the time. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with them, Andy. Yeah. They help integrate you back into relationship. Yeah. They don't necessarily last though, and don't expect them to last. So if they fail again, don't blame yourself that you're not good enough for relationships. Look at each next relationship as practice on integrating yourself into a relationship, healing your wounds, And also getting familiar with, what are your real needs in a relationship? What's disappointing? What are your patterns? Yeah. So this is all a journey. And the mistake a lot of people make is labeling themselves as, gosh, I'm not worth it. Yeah. I just can't do relationships. Yeah. So I would say, rather than give up on yourself and label yourself, it's like, great, okay, I have a pattern. So failure is an identification of something you might be doing. Picking the wrong person, for example, having high expectations, or not feeling good enough in yourself, and being codependent, for example. So, if I was taking care of my mother a lot as a child and doing things for her, or even in illness, and I did that a lot, maybe because I didn't have another role, I wasn't appreciated for just who I was as a child, then I will go into an adult relationship, maybe thinking I should be giving a lot because that's how I get appreciation from my family. And the person might appreciate it in the very beginning, but then it'll begin too much. It's like, gosh, I don't have space to give back. I don't have space to even experience myself because I'm overwhelmed by all you're giving. Yeah. And so there's almost an imbalance that each part, there's a guilt, actually. The receiving partner actually feels a sense of guilt. And in constellation work, we often see that sense of guilt leads to actually a betrayal or an abandonment.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah. So do your inner work as much as you can, but don't think you cannot get into a relationship until you do all your inner work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mix them both up.
Right. Yeah.
But don't expect everything from one relationship, for sure not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so glad you started that answer with don't expect to be rescued, right, by that next person or have those wounds be healed, because I think that ties back into our last conversation around codependency and that belief that we can, fill the lack of wholeness from someone else outside of us, as opposed to just recognizing our wholeness to begin with. So that's, very important and big step in the world of recovering from that.
Yeah. And I also want to remind viewers that, there's a bit of a cliche going on that you have to be whole first before you get into a relationship. I don't believe in that so much, because sometimes we need relationship in order to feel connected. It's both, right? You can feel connected and grounded for sure, and relationship adds something. So it's not 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 is 3. Like we get a whole different experience of ourselves and of life.
Yeah.
So be playful when you're getting into relationships. Don't be so hard on yourself thinking, okay, I got to fix this. I'm not ready. Yes, if you don't feel ready, don't force yourself. But don't be hard on yourself to become the perfect person before you can let someone into your heart.
Right. Yeah. Because I definitely know that some people could wait forever if they're really thinking they're going to have it all figured out before they get into a relationship. So yeah.
Relationship will help you figure that out, and be gentle with yourself if it doesn't work out. Yeah. That's really the strongest message I can find out right now.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about your gift. You mentioned it a few minutes ago. So you have a gift for everyone, as well as an offer, and everyone, there's a couple buttons below that link over to Dr. Ameet's site. So what do you have for us?
So the first gift, free completely, is how to heal your gut, your liver, your adrenal system, and your emotions together. There's some beautiful emotional healing exercises you can do there where you feel it's safe to feel certain feelings once in a while. The word once in a while is very important, and you see why in that video. And just understanding how to connect your gut and your liver and your adrenal glands is super important if you really want to heal the pillars of your health. And then the second offer is a bunch of my interviews, where I'll talk about different emotional healing experiences, different tips on healing your gut, your liver, your adrenal glands. So it's all integrated. All these interviews integrate mind and body medicine. So enjoy.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And everyone, again, those buttons are below. And do you have any last insights before we wrap up?
Gosh, love yourself and love your spiritual self, whether it's God, whether it's Jesus, whether it's, your spiritual divine presence. There's something about your spirituality that I'm getting in touch with right now. And, if you have a belief about something bigger than you and stronger than you, don't poo-poo it down because society is going against it. Trust in your heart and what your ancestors gave you as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Perfect ending. Thank you so much for doing this, Ameet.
Thanks again. Ciao, ciao.
Right. Thank you, everyone, Avaya students who are watching and listening, for showing up for yourself today. We'll see you again real soon. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this latest class with Dr. Ameet Agarwal. He talked with us about finding love after abandonment. I really enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy talking with Ameet and exploring all of these really great topics. And some of the big things that stuck out for me was when we talked about don't expect, let's say you've had a relationship fall apart, since we're talking about finding love after abandonment. Don't expect the next relationship to rescue you, right? Or to ultimately heal you. And simultaneously, while keeping that in mind, it doesn't mean you shouldn't get into a relationship necessarily if it feels right for you to get into a new relationship, because relationships can reconnect you to being in relationship again. Relationships can help in many ways. So it's kind of this interesting balance between being responsible for ultimately doing your own rescuing and your own healing and your own inner work on yourself, while simultaneously not being afraid to get back into relationship if it's something that feels right for you right now and you feel ready for that. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that again, because I think it's an interesting balance and dynamic between the two of those. So also, if you enjoyed Ameet's conversation today, he is in many other masterclasses at Avaya University, including Conquering Codependency and Finding Self-Love, which is definitely heavily related to this topic of abandonment and self-worth as well. He's also been featured in Breaking Free from Toxic Relationships and many others. So if you want to check those out, they're on the homepage of avaya.com. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Remember, you can go deeper in your healing with amazing remedies and therapies covered in your free online course and ebook on drameet.com. That's DRAMEET.com. Lots of love and thank you. God bless.